Ready to be Mr. Chair? Here's your stall of fame recipient.
Where?
Door. He's not walked in the door quiet.
Oh, I see him back there. He's in the shadows.
Shout.
I'm waiting.
When you are.
Good morning. I'd like to welcome all those people joining us together in the chamber this morning and those online. It is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024 as we kick off the new year. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the Weber County Board of Commissioners on this date. I'm Commissioner Gage, for I'll be conducting first part of this meeting. With me is Commissioner Jim Harvey to my right, Commissioner Sharon Bolus to my left. We're going to start the meeting this morning with a Pledge of Allegiance given by our own Shelley Hallisey. Invocation will be given by Chris Crockett, and then we're honored to have the thought of the day by Commissioner Harvey. So we'll go to that point.
Please rise and join me in the pledge.
Our Father in heaven, we bow our heads and offer up thanks unto Thee on this beautiful day. Father, we are so grateful for the many blessings which Thou hast bestowed upon us this past year and for all the experiences and opportunities we've had. At the beginning of this year, Father, we ask that Thy Spirit will be with us, that we will be mindful of those who are around us, those who are in need, those who are in need of help. Please open our minds to be able to be sensitive to those needs so that we may be able to reach out and enrich the lives of everyone around us. At the start of this commission meeting and the beginning of this new year, we ask that Thy Spirit will be with us as we embark in engaging in the public's business, that we may be able to make decisions that will benefit and improve the lives of those who live among us and that we serve. We offer these things up and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, some of the best examples, some of the best mentors I've had in my life are those teachers, and those mentors or examples all share a common denominator, and they're all willing to learn. I find that to be wonderful attributes. I remember hearing a talk from Gordon B. Hinckley when he was 90-something years old, and he was always continue learning more and more and more. I thought that was a great example. But today I'd like to take an excerpt out of who I like to call my Uncle Paul Harvey. And some people, like my friends the Davises in the audience, you may not be old enough to remember Paul Harvey, but I'm going to share something with you today. And it's about the future generations. And he said, Paul Harvey said, you know, it was this letter to his grandchildren. And he said, we tried so hard to make things better for our kids that we made them worse for my grandchildren. I'd like better. I'd like them to know that about hand-me-down clothes and homemade ice cream and leftover meatloaf sandwiches. I really would. I hope you learn humility by being humiliated. I hope that you learn honesty by being cheated. I hope you learn to make your own bed and to mow the lawn and wash the car. And I really hope nobody gives you a brand new car when you are 16. It would be good if at least one time you can see puppies born and your old dog put to sleep. I hope you get a black eye fighting for something you believe in. I hope you have to share a bedroom with your younger brother or sister. And it's all right if you have to draw a line down the middle of the room, but when he wants to crawl under the covers with you because he's scared, I hope you let him. When you want to see a movie and your little brother, sister wants to tag along, I hope you let him or her. I hope you have to walk uphill to school with your friends and that you live in a town where you can do it safely. On rainy days, when you have to catch a ride, I hope you don't ask your driver to drop you off 2 blocks away so you don't have to be seen riding with someone as uncool as your mom. If you want a slingshot, I hope your dad teaches you how to make one instead of buying one. I hope you learn to dig in the dirt and to read books. When you learn to use computers, I hope you also learn to add and subtract in your head. I hope you get teased by your friends when you have your first crush on a boy or a girl, and when you talk back to your mother that you learn what Ivory soap tastes like. May you skin your knee climbing a mountain, burn your hand on a stove, and stick your tongue on a frozen flagpole. I don't care if you try a beer once, but I hope you don't like it. And if your friend offers you dope or marijuana or a joint, I hope you realize he or she is not your friend. I sure hope you make time to sit on a porch with your grandma and grandpa and go fishing with your uncle. May you feel sorrow. May you feel sorrow at a funeral and joy during the holidays. I hope your mother punishes you when you throw a baseball through your neighbor's window, and she hugs and kisses you at Christmas time. When you give her a plaster mold of your hand. These things I wish for you. Tough times and disappointment, hard work and happiness. To me, it's the only way to appreciate life. You know, when I read that the other day in preparation for this thought, I thought, man, most of those things I remember. I love that I learned how to cook on a stove before there was a microwave and after my mom had left home. I'm glad I learned how to wash dishes before we had the one that wheeled around and we had to hook it up to the kitchen faucet. And I'm glad there was the ladies in the neighborhood that took care of me when I didn't know how to do much things for myself at 5 and 6 and 7. So I'm grateful so much to have had the experiences that I had, because it helps me appreciate, to learn, and that others have it I'd never trade my experiences with anybody. I feel truly blessed. So appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And if you ever see Uncle Paul again, give him our best. Good uncle to have. Okay, with that, Commissioners, let's go to our next agenda item, which would be related to public comments. And what we'll do is accept comments from members of the public in attendance today in the chamber. We'd ask you that you take no longer than 3 minutes. I believe Ricky or Commissioner Harvey will put a timer on that, and that those comments be directed to any of the agenda items listed on your agenda as you walked in. With that, if you just please come up, identify yourself by name and location where you live, so we can make that obviously part of the public record. So now's your opportunity to please come forward and address the commission. And I'll just remind everybody, these are comments to be made to the public. The commission is not here to answer questions. During our discussion on any of the agenda items that come up, then if we have questions for staff that we'll call up to be answered by staff. But the commission will not take any direct answer or direct questions from members of the audience during this public comment section. All right, public comments are open. Please come up if you're interested. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Tina Rohr, and I live in Salt Lake City, much too near the original inland port, which is what I'm here to speak on. And I would like to first recognize your thought for the day, going back to things that we remember. And I would like you to remember birds and animals, because if we keep going this way, we're not going to see those much anymore. So here I go. The inland port is again talking of destroying wetlands near the Great Salt Lake between the Harold Crane Waterfowl Management Area and the Ogden Bay Waterfowl Management Area. This is just on the heels of the vote to move forward with twin ports in Grantsville and Tooele. Also destroying habitat and animal species near the Great Salt Lake. Another port project is within a mile of the Bear River Migratory Bird Refuge. Once wetlands are destroyed, we can never get them back. The health of the Great Salt Lake depends on its wetlands. The health of tens of thousands of birds and animals depend on the wetlands and the lake. Species continue to disappear, too many species to count. The Great Salt Lake is drying up, the wetlands parched and increasingly developed. Life forms are going extinct 1,000 times faster than the baseline extinction rate. Look around you. Now, subtract half of what you see. The promoters of the inland port want you to see the money they say the port will bring. They do not want you to see the pollution, traffic, extinction, and climate crisis that they are driving. There has been no environmental study, no traffic study, no light pollution, air pollution, water pollution, natural resource depletion, sustainability, or global warming studies either. The inland port supporters have not even completed a thorough business plan, though development has begun in too many places in our beautiful state. They have broken their promises and continue to be secretive about their projects. I oppose the spending of my taxpayer money to degrade the environment, increase extinction rates, and fuel the climate emergency. I oppose the building of more polluting ports near the Great Salt Lake. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Next, please come up.
Good morning, Commissioners Frower, Bolas, and Harvey. My name is Roberta Fletcher. I live in Salt Lake City, so thank you for this opportunity to comment. I am asking the Weber County Commissioners, all of you, to vote no to adopting a resolution to create a Utah Inland Port Authority, also known as UIPA, in my comment, industrial park in the Ogden area. I have not read nor heard any positive reasons why we need to develop these 8,966 acres for industrial manufacturing. The predominant and motivating reason, I suspect, is that the landowners and developers would profit from it. Would that reason outweigh the impacts this industrial park would have on air quality, on water quality, and on wildlife? And what about the amount of water needed to develop such an industrial park like this? Why not let market forces determine if this development is warranted? What I can see happening is more traffic congestion, more air pollution, more noise from trucks traveling to and fro, and more poor water quality, particularly affecting the wetlands near the Great Salt Lake. The UIPA has not been upfront nor clear to the people about how this proposal would affect their local communities and environment. Except for this day, this hour that was rushed upon us, no public forum for timely comments has been set aside. Why is that? I have seen no information on the effect it would have on the adjacent Harold Crane and Ogden Bay waterfowl areas referenced earlier a moment ago, and other wetland areas near the Great Salt Lake. This industrial park proposal, even though on privately owned land, would be paid for by us, the taxpayers. Their profit should not be at our expense. Should we trust a port authority that is already paying $140,000 a month, like they are in Salt Lake, to a developer for the next 40 years, and for what purpose? I understand this same developer is among these now seeking a public subsidy in Weber County. We need a well-planned audit to take place of the UIPA board actions before any commissioners approve this industrial park. So please vote no. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us today. Next, please come up.
I'm Neil Davis. I live in West Warren on 900 South. That is the only road that goes down there that is paved. There's a couple dirt roads that you can go, but the main road is 900 South. Now, you put that many vehicles, I won't be able to get across the road. I farm on each side of the road. When I have to take a tractor down the road now, it's a scary thing. They've already taken our property along our houses to widen the road. And I just don't believe that we should have that without more roads going into it before this starts, if they do it. One blurb that nobody's seen on page 13 is the 14,000 homes that it says it will be allowed there. Now that's a huge amount. Some of that property adjoins our property. And this next week, we're going to look at rezoning some of that. I didn't know that the Port Authority would also have housing. Does the county have the say over this, or does the board that's over the port have say on housing, what goes in, and everything? And then one other thing, and the state archaeologist wasn't able to be here, but during the floods of 82, 83, 84, he went out and he has 100 documented graves that they gathered the bones and reset them on some of the ground that is on the northwest side of that. And he said he would be willing to show them, but I think the Indian population would probably want to know about that. When I was a young man, they actually had an excavation out there, and it was called Indian Village, and the university did that. So I would like them things addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure most of those will be addressed when we hear from our economic development people. Thank you. Next, please come up.
Hi, I'm
Morning.
Leslie Lofel. I'm a Weber County resident. I live in Huntsville. I've never spoken like this before, so give me a break. I'm so worried about this West Weber Inland Port plan. And I feel that it's completely contrary to what we're trying to do with preserving Great Salt Lake and its wetlands. We're spending millions of taxpayer dollars by trying to preserve other wetlands around the Great Salt Lake, of which there are very few left. This property, the large piece that's called Little Mountain, if you look at the map, it's half wetlands and water. And why would we want to have a major infrastructure project there that will destroy these wetlands while we've just awarded $8.5 million from the Great Salt Lake Water Enhancement Trust to work on other wetlands and try and conserve other wetlands around Great Salt Lake? I think everyone's aware of the value of wetlands in sequestering carbon, wildlife habitat, filtering water, all the positive health benefits. We need those wetlands. Why would we want to eliminate them and then have to try and mitigate later, which does not have the same effectiveness as natural wetlands? Why spend millions of taxpayer dollars more when we have wetlands that we can keep? So I think that's a major reason that this location is just not appropriate for an inland port. I'd also like you to consider the timing of this. This was announced on Friday, I believe, before New Year's weekend. It's now the first business morning after a holiday. I was spending my holiday writing you saying, please give this some time. Let's study this some more. People are unaware this is even happening. Let's consider the consequences that the local community is going to experience for decades to come from this before we go ahead with this. So I ask you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please come up. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. My name is Kristen Purdy, and I live in Ogden. I'm also very concerned about the inland port, and I'd like to provide you some facts that were not included in Appendix E in the inventory document about the natural resources on the western side of Weber County. This is information that the UIPA does not wish you to know, because if you knew the richness of the habitat that we have out there in western Weber County, it would perhaps cause you to put the brakes on this proposal, which is what I am asking you to do. I'm going to start with a fact that you are well aware of. Weber County is number 27 in size of our 29 counties in the state. We're the third smallest county in the state. However, when it comes to bird species, we are the 7th highest documented bird species of our 29 counties in Utah. That's a pretty significant spread, and it is specifically because of the rich habitats on the west side of our county. Fully 2/3 of those species have been documented on the west side of the county in unincorporated Weber County. You're well aware of the richness at Ogden Bay WMA and at Harold Crane WMA, within which these two properties of the Utah Inland Port are sandwiched. At Ogden Bay, we have documented, we being the birding community in Utah, over 200 species of birds. At Harold Crane, we have documented over 150 species of birds. Now I'm going to share with you some specific points within the Little Mountain Zone and within the Weber Bend Zone that also constitute the birding community documented the rich habitat and diversity of birds that we have out there. The west side of the Little Mountain Zone is something that we call the West Weber Playa. We have documented 138 species of birds there. Little Mountain itself, if you went out to Little Mountain, you would think it was dry, volcanic rock, nothing out there. No, we've documented 55 species of birds at Little Mountain. 8300 West, at the very north end of 8300 West, 134 species of birds, including the richest area where you can find nesting geese, Arctic migrating geese, not just Canada geese, which you might see feeding on the fields at Weber State. I'm talking about cackling geese, snow geese, Ross's geese. Last year they were joined by a flock of 500 tundra swans, trumpeter swans, even a subspecies of trumpeter swan called the Buick swan that comes from Asia. This is the best place in the state of Utah to see rare geese in the winter. The 5900 West Marsh, which is a little patch of wetland that occurs in the West Weber Zone, 100 species of birds. Gentlemen, please reconsider. Take an adequate inventory of the riches that we have there, and please please put the brakes on this program until you've adequately studied the riches of West Weber County. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Next, please come up.
My name is Suzanne Storer, and I've lived in Ogden for 42 years. And first of all, the term port is a euphemism for a truck terminal, train terminal, whatever else needs to carry things. And listening to the previous speakers, I agree with them totally. I would like you to know how many people here are here because they're against this proposal. So I'm asking all of those who are against it to raise their hands. Also, I've always thought of Ogden as a forward-looking town. And this is, in my personal opinion, absolutely backward thinking. I can see maybe this proposal coming up 20, 30 years ago as being something that would be good, progress. But with climate change, with all of the things that are happening in our world now, I think this is very regressive to go for such a truck terminal. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
Hello, my name is Laura Johnston. I've lived in Roy for 41 years. I really appreciate all the information that the 5 or 6 former previous commenters have in their heads and in their hearts. I don't have all that information, but like Commissioner Harvey, I have some hopes. I hope that people in the future can see thousands of sandhill cranes and hear the noises that they make in the sky at certain times in the spring. I hope that a single person walking along a trail out in this area, where I have been many times, can hear a little marsh wren in the shrubs, in the bushes at the side of the waterways and the swamps, making their little peeping noises and keeping track of each other, and maybe even catching sight of that small bird. I hope that someone can stand out in that area that we are going to totally pave over and get rid of. I hope that doesn't happen, because I wish that someone could stand out there and look back at our beautiful mountains, our ranges, and at our city that has flourished there. I hope that someone can walk out, that people in the future can walk out there and have their feet stick in the mud and experience the feel of the pull of the earth. It doesn't happen on pavement. I hope in the future people can get a whiff of air that has been pushed by the wind over grass, water, snow, and not mufflers and buildings and pavement. Thank you for letting me speak, and I hope, like Commissioner Harvey, that my hopes come true.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
Greetings. My name is Karen Thurber. I've lived in Ogden for 34 years now.
Welcome.
Thank you. I want to talk about air quality. We have 2 children that have asthma. The number of children with asthma along the Wasatch Front is up over 20% and increasing every year. We don't have to tell you about the inversions and how bad they've become. It used to be from our home up at the top of 22nd Street, we could look down on the inversion. It is now covering us into the valley. You well know, Commissioner Frower, how bad that can be in the valley. Certainly the west side of the county, it's horrible. To add the pollution of hundreds, if not thousands of trucks to that situation would be literally killing our children. The other thing I want to bring up is I really admire how Ogden City handled the redevelopment of the Marshall White Center. Now, why am I bringing that up? Because they spent an entire year getting public input, public ability to look at the plans, to help make decisions for the city council, and the final product is going to be wonderful. I'm asking this commission to, first of all, vote no today, and then put this into a minimum 6 months to 1 year study project. Why the big rush? The only thing that occurs to me as to why this is rushed is for the profit of the developers. And that's not the people of Weber County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
Hello, my name is Lynn Carroll. I live in Ogden. I'm concerned about having an inland port at the edge of Great Salt Lake for a number of reasons. I'm concerned as a nature lover. As you've heard of the bird populations out there, wetlands are so important to us as humans. They provide all kinds of services in the way of absorbing excess water when there is excess, and then preserving it and letting it to flow to the lake. I'm concerned about the loss of those wetlands, because if you're going to put a lot of infrastructure out in that area, you're going to end up draining or damaging those wetlands. I'm concerned as a resident who will breathe the air as the Great Salt Lake dries, and by putting more infrastructure out there, you're going to be probably decreasing the amount of water that reaches the lake. I'm concerned as a taxpayer. I think that a lot of what's going on with the inland ports is supporting developers that cannot afford to build in places that are so, unfriendly to development unless they get a lot of support. I'm eager for my taxpayer money to be used in the programs that the legislature has started to save the Great Salt Lake from drying up, to support maintenance of wetlands. Thank you. Please vote no on today's resolution.
Thank you for being here. Next, please come up.
Jill Hipwell out of West Weber. I know this has been talked about since at least 2019. Sounds like to me there's still a lot of studies that need to be done. I'm not going to discuss the environmental. I'm not aware of that. I am aware of our general plan. I don't think this follows what our planning commission wanted for out there. I do know there's a lot of farmers that can no longer farm out there. We do need an option. There are a couple of statements in our general plan I want to go over with. One is a community character to pursue preservation of funding for and design and reconstruction of the historic train stations or historic train station museums along the historic Union Pacific Railroad, such as the Reese Station and the West Weber Station. Under the Parks and Recreation, seek opportunities to install multi-use paved trails along permanent features in the area, such as railroads, etc. I believe that might be detrimental if we have the port out there to accomplish what people in our community agreed with. And then the one thing that really struck me in our general plan, it says the Union Pacific has made it clear that to expand crossings or create new crossings would mean closing 2 to 5 existing crossings. We don't have enough crossings out there now. What's going to happen when we have that many much more traffic on 12th Street and even on our railroad? We really need to think about our future. I want my kids to be able to do exactly what Paul Harvey's kids did. The more growth we get out there, the worse it's going to get. We need to protect all of that and what we, as our general plan, wanted. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please come up.
I'm John Hines. I was born in the D Hospital up on Harrison, so I've been around a long time. I think I've waited for all the ladies to go first.
Welcome.
I am very much opposed to this on 3 issues. One, I don't understand the rush. I don't understand why this was announced so late and is being voted on right now. It makes me very uncomfortable. It seems like bad government. I don't understand why we want to spend so much money, invest so much money in a questionable port in a questionable location. I see a lot of opposition here in spite of the short notice. And I wonder how much opposition there is in the county towards this for all of the reasons that have been spoken to. It reminds me sort of an oversized apartment building that was rushed through and is now being torn down on 27th Street. Just not thought through and properly executed. And the last thing I'd like to say is, are you familiar with the Rockefeller Parkway? It's the land between Grand Teton National Park and Yellowstone National Park. That property was acquired and then donated to the Park Service because it linked those 2 gems up there. It seems that we have some very significant wetlands that have already been preserved for wildlife preservation. This property sits right between 2 of those. It strikes me that a more meaningful use of that property would be to link those wetlands. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Next, please come up. Welcome.
Good morning. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. In 2019, I went to Governor Cox, had an economic summit. And at that economic summit was the beginning of the inland port conversations. And I listened to Brad Wilson on a panel, and we talked about air quality. And that air quality didn't really have to do with emissions. It had to do with particulate from the lake. And I stood in front of you in 2019 as well, opposing the rock quarry that was going to be in Huntsville, which you declined, and I'm very, very grateful for that, again, because of air quality. Most of what we have happening has to do with particulate. Emissions is a part of it, but particulate from the lake is the biggest problem. I'm a big wildlife person. I lobbied very hard for the Wildlife Center. I also lobbied very hard for the Marshall White Center. I'm very in tune with community conversations, but the difference between my opinion and some of the opinions that you've been hearing is that I've spent over 5 hours with the Weber County planner going over your general plan, which is genius, by the way. It's a wonderful document, and it is forward-thinking about 50 years. Everybody that I have heard speak is missing a lot of key information with regards to the benefits of the inland port and how it can be effectively managed to preserve wildlife, to make sure that we have an economic center that is going to bring good, solid union jobs, that is going to provide the county money to be able to do the things that we need to do to take care of the citizens. You can put limitations on the type of transportation that is going in and out of the port. You can demand electric vehicles. You can demand gas-powered vehicles. And if you do what I think you're going to do with regards to being good stewards of the county, I trust that you're going to make the right decision and make sure that there are limitations. I also understand why there is a rush on this, and it has everything to do with funding and how it flows. And I believe you should have really long, engaged conversations with the community to educate them. This is a big deal. I have been looking at this since 2019. And I have put in the time talking to planners. I have put in the time talking to engineers, and we have enough water. We have a calculation that is done, and there's plenty of water to go around as long as we are smart about it. And so I, unlike many people here, encourage you to approve the port, but I also deeply encourage you to make sure that there are limitations with regards to the type of vehicles, of reducing emissions, of working actively with wildlife groups to make sure that they are trusted partners in preserving that wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Next, please come up. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Waite. I'm looking at the statements in the front of the chambers about public services, public trust, customer service, financial stability, and continuous improvement. And I'm impressed that to bring the topic of the Utah Inland Port before you as commissioners, before the public has had an opportunity to understand the implications for the neighborhoods, for answering all of the questions that have been lingering and actually increasing over the last 5.5 years, to consider that today with any vote, particularly to pass it, is premature in addressing any of the topics that I'm seeing in the front of the chambers. So I'm looking particularly at public trust item, to conduct the affairs of county government in such a way as to nurture public confidence. I know that when we run for public office, because I am a former public official myself, we do that because we want the public trust and we want to serve the public and build confidence in our consideration and regard for our constituents, for the public, in building for financial stability and improvement and customer service and public services in a way that everyone is clear about what the benefits and potential harms, because there are presentations and opportunities for interaction about to answer the questions that come up in the public at this point, but can come up even better when proper presentations are done that invite and allow the public to ask questions, to understand better what's going on, where it's going to go, what the design plan is. And I'm hearing other people comment about the planning and the need for planning and the history of planning in this county and how successful it has been. So for this to be kind of an instantaneous presentation, consideration, potential vote, and then basically setting you up for questions to come after the fact, I know that will corrode public trust, because it raises questions about public participation and input and raises confusion. And I know inland port leaders have mentioned that point about confusion, but it is not public comment and people like me commenting. It is the fact that people haven't had the opportunity to really understand what the benefits, but really potential harms of the port are. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next, please come up. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Therese Lusitano. I live in North Davis County. I waited purposefully. I think I'm the last to speak because I only learned about this yesterday. I thought when we voted in 2019-20 with the inland port that we had committed to an inland port, singular, Salt Lake. And to find out that you're taking to me this pristine land between Harold Crane and Ogden Bay and turning it into another parking lot for trucks with developers who are going to be subsidized just horrified me. I'm a birder, I'm a hunter. I pay for a federal duck stamp every year to put money towards the maintenance of our wetlands. I suffer from asthma. I've got an appointment tomorrow, a follow-up, because my asthma has been so bad this fall. I am a water conserver. I put in rain barrels. I watered my garden in 2022, hauling 5-gallon buckets. And Layton City response to that in early last year, late last fall was, oh, people conserved water so well, let's go ahead and approve some more developments. It's just like, I guess where I'm going. I'm not as well prepared as so many of these other people. I agree with all of them. Also the woman who asked you to vote for it. Give us some time. Breathe deep. Let the public know. Let us give some input before all the decisions are made, not after. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Next. Looks like you weren't the last, but please come up.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Chris Roybal. I'm the president of the Northern Utah Economic Alliance. We're involved in what we call high-quality job creation in northern Utah. Weber County has always been a long-standing powerhouse in industrial, advanced manufacturing, job creation. So I wanted to provide a couple of clarifications for the comments that have been made. Number one, this property that we're discussing has been zoned by the county fathers over 40 years ago for industrial development. And I think that was a smart thing to do all of those years ago. Obviously, the market demand was not there. The market demand is still not quite there. But as we look at our region up here, BDO is filling to its capacity with about 15 million square feet. They've done a terrific job of providing high quality jobs. We need to find these next places for job centers so that our kids and grandkids can find a place for employment. So one, it's zoned for it. It's in the right location. There's other industrial development in that region currently. Number two, with regards to wetlands, we've done a study on the core of that property on a 200-acre piece and had that conducted by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. There's zero jurisdictional wetlands on that property and any of the adjacent properties in that area. There are certainly wetlands within the surrounding regions, but not on that industrial property. We've also conducted a phase 1 and phase 2 engineering study on 800 acres of the core of that property, and also found that there are no endangered species issues or archaeological issues related to in the core of that particular property. My understanding is that the port will work hand in glove with the county as someone did bring up market demand and market timing. That is true. Nothing will, from my perspective, nothing will be brought out here until the market dictates that there's a timing and a readiness for that to happen, and the infrastructure will come with that. I believe thoughtfully with regards to water, wastewater, utility upgrades, road improvements, all of those things will come, I believe, naturally, probably over about a 20 or 30-year period of time as jobs are needed in this region. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
Hey, good morning. I'm Pete LeCain. I'm a Ogden resident. I was just curious, we're just listening to the discussion, and when I think of a port, having grown up on the East Coast, ports are developed as having a corridor. Say, if we have a port near Little Mountain, which is out near the marshlands, I understand that. I go out road riding out there, and it's quiet, except for when you have to go past a farm equipment, then it's slow, and then it's quiet again. But I'm thinking, okay, now there's a port, and it needs a corridor. Part of my logic is like, well, we do have an industrial park here in Ogden, but now it's like, oh, if that's full, and we're looking for an expansion. So the port is going to be sending freight from the Weber, Davis area, I assume, to Salt Lake. And so back and forth, to me, it makes sense that there would be rail to minimize the amount of overland truck traffic that you get going from one place to the other. So maybe that's something that could be considered for this instance, and it would help with the marshland maintenance. Just something to think about. And having read a little bit about it in the newspaper, and then all of a sudden, oh, yeah, we're having a forum, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak, and we need to have discussions so we understand what we're buying into. Thank you for your time, and
Thank you for being here. All right, next, please come up. Unless there's anybody that has a burning desire to be the last, we'll call this the last speaker. So we're running out of time. All right. All right, well, two. All right, go ahead.
My name's Brent Davis. It was just said that there's no archaeological Indian stuff out there. That is totally false. It is also said there's not marsh in this area. There's lots of ponds in this area. That I've lived out there for 74 years, and I know this area. As far as traffic, it was mentioned that we could use electric vehicles. Well, how many trucks are electric that travel a long ways? That's not right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll recognize, I thought I saw two hands come up. All right, we're going to make this the last speaker. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to speak as well. People that want to speak. Unless you've already made a point.
No. All right, we'll recognize you too, but we're going to make sure we keep it on time. And we want to make sure everybody's had the opportunity to be heard. Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Sean Robinson. I'm 19. I'm from Brigham City. I did not, unfortunately, have the time to prepare what I would have liked to speak today, but I felt that my being here and my speaking was still important. I'm here in strong opposition of the Inland Ports project. I also would like to bring up the timing of this project and the timeline of this resolution. Again, it's like someone said earlier, it's the first workday after a holiday. As far as I'm concerned, there has not been a public hearing. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And I also would like to bring maybe a younger voice to this conversation. maybe this project is not the death of the Great Salt Lake or the surrounding area wetlands, but it is certainly one step closer. And I think long-term economic development, I know long-term economic development is important. I also know that protecting our wetlands and our nature is just as important, and I do think that those can go hand in hand if we took the time to really work for that and not rush a project and not look over any details in something that is this big and this important. Yeah, thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we'll hear from the two young ladies that had their hands up. Please come up.
Thank you for the time to speak. My name is Morgan. I am an Ogden resident. This is as much a hometown as I can really have. I grew up here. My family is from here, and I have loved most of it. I love Ogden. I am here to strongly oppose the proposed inland port. Like many have pointed out, it has been rushed. It has not been really thoroughly vetted by the public. We don't have a lot of information about it, but what we do know is that it is going to be publicly funded, yet privately they're going to be collecting those profits. So we have publicly subsidized yet privately owned, and it's putting the burden on many taxpayers to pay their bills already, to pay taxes already, and then, to have those funds go to something that we don't have a lot of information about just doesn't really seem fair. The other thing is, additionally, like many have mentioned, the traffic pollution and loss of a vital ecosystem would be detrimental to the local population. I think, like you said, pointed out, our previous speaker, it may not be the total death, but it is definitely a step in that direction. And we need to thoroughly consider how we can economically grow and continue to be a strong community here in Ogden without putting people's lives in danger, without putting our kids in danger. I really appreciated Mr. Harvey, your thoughts earlier, because I am also a mother, and I worry about if my son will remember snow, if he'll have the opportunity to have those core memories, or if that will go by the wayside too. I worry if he will be able to walk to school, or if our society has become so car-centric that that is an impossibility. I worry about those things as well, and I really appreciated that thought. So I wanted to come up here and say that that I think the proposed inland port would benefit mostly the developers and not be a benefit to the general public and the local ecosystem. It would be harmful. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts.
Thank you. Okay, next. All right. With that, seeing no other people that's stepping forward, we're going to put an end to our public comments. Let me just say this. I appreciate all the people that took time out of their day to be here to express their comments. The commission takes those very seriously. We understand the issues involved with this, from the wetlands through transportation, air quality, et cetera. Those have been discussed in quite a bit of detail. This is not, even though this proposal here today may be new to some, actually we passed a resolution somewhat time ago about the inland port, and we had very little comment. So this is not a new item just addressed, because it was a previous resolution that was presented to the board 3 or 4 months ago. Is that correct? 5 months ago. Okay. So, but we do appreciate it. We'll take it, and I would hope that those that are in the audience that spoke today will stick around as we get to that point on the agenda, when I think that you will receive some information that hopefully will be of importance to you. So when we get to that point. So with that, commissioners, with no further comments, I'm going to move to consent items. And that would be items F1 through 16 as presented on the agenda. Number 1, request for approval to ratify warrants 9703 through 9810. Number 481-265 through 481-448, and number 321 through 324 in the amount of $6,007,000, $394.43. dated December 26, 2023. 2, request for approval of warrants 9811 through 9840 and 481,449 through 481,521 and the amount of $1,657,563.87. 3, request for approval of purchase orders in the amount of $748,612.13. And for a summary of warrants and purchase orders, we'll go to Mr. Ricky Hatch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We issued 49 purchase orders this week for $749,000. Just over half that amount, or $389,000, was for the library to purchase books and materials as well as conduct building maintenance. We had a couple of items at 13%, one for $106,000. That was for our IT department to purchase software, one for the sheriff's office to purchase vehicles. We had 11% of that amount, or $82,000, is for the transfer station to purchase a dump trailer, and 9%, or $67,000, is for the conference center to purchase chairs. As far as warrants, we had 2 check runs, one last week when we did not have a commission meeting, and then one for this week. Last week's check run included 296 warrants for $6 million. 42% of that amount, or $2.5 million, was ARPA funds that were distributed to Osprey Ranch for infrastructure. 17%, or $1 million, is for employee health insurance, and 2 items at 7%, one for the jail to provide nursing and healthcare services, as well as food and building maintenance, and the other for the transfer station for facility improvements. For the check run this week, we issued 103 warrants for $1.7 million. 3/4 of that amount, $1.2 million, were escrow releases to Sundown, Edgewater Beach, and Taylor Landing. And then 9%, or $153,000, is for the library to go towards HVAC improvements up in the Ogden Valley branch.
Thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners, questions for Mr. Hatch? Warrants or purchase orders?
None for me.
Seeing none, let's go to our next agenda item, which would be for approval of new business licenses. 6, request for approval to declare parcel number 5, 136, and 39 as surplus property. 7, request from the Weber County Sheriff's Office for approval to surplus 2 DJI Mavic drones. 8, request for approval of a settlement agreement by and between Mylan Inc. in the opioid litigation case. 9, request for approval of a settlement agreement between Sun Pharmaceutical in the opioid litigation case. 10, request for approval of the Utah subdivision agreement to allocate opioid settlement funds. 11, request for approval of an amendment to interlocal agreement by and between Weber County and Uinta City for ballot drop box security camera. 12, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Winco Fireworks Utah LLC for the Winco Fireworks Blast-Off to be held at the Golden Spike Event Center. 13, request for approval of an amendments to the Weber County Vehicle Use and Maintenance Policy. 14, request for approval of a facility rental agreement by and between Weber County and the Republican Party for Republican Party meetings to be held at the Weber Center. 15, request for approval of the contract by and between Weber County and Spikers Rodeo Team to hold the 2024 Spikers High School Rodeo at the Golden Spike Event Center. And 16, request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Broken Heart Rodeo Company to hold the Cowboy Clash Boxing Smoker at the Golden Spike Event Center. That's our consent items. Commissioners, questions, comments? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items F1 through 16.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Consent items are approved. Let's go to our action items, Commissioners. The first item on our action this morning is discussion and or action on appointment of the Weber County Chair and Vice Chair. Commissioners?
Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready
Do you
for
want to say
discussion or
something,
action.
Commissioner Harvey?
Sorry.
I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Commissioner Jim Harvey as the chair for the Weber County Commission
For 2024.
for 2024.
Great. I'm going to second that. I'm going to place that motion and we'll take the vice chair next. All those in favor, Commissioner Harvey being appointed as chair for the 2024 year, please signify by saying aye.
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 All right. I'd now take a motion for our vice chair for 2024, same time period.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
thank you for your service. You've done a phenomenal job. You're a good teacher. You've run a lot of meetings, and you've done great with a lot of great things. It's without belaboring this too long, there was a time when this didn't rotate time to time, and that doesn't give everybody who chooses to place their name on a ballot, who comes from the ordinary world or sits on that side. I sat on that side of the dais for 24 years. But to be able to watch the transfer of power or to see that move, I think is important so that each of us have an opportunity to learn. And with that, I would like to nominate, or I'd make a motion that we approve Commissioner Sharon Bolos as the vice chair.
Now I'm going to second that with the comment before I place the motion. Make her wait a second. Let me just say this. It's been an honor to work with my fellow commissioners, all our elected public officials over the last month. 2023 has been an interesting, sometimes more than interesting year. Some of the subjects we've had to address, but that's what we signed up for. But it's been an honor to serve with both my fellow commissioners. And it's, you know, it needs to be said, we haven't and we don't always agree on every subject, but we have good debate, we have good discussions, and at the end of the day, I believe we make decisions in the best interest of this county and the taxpayers of this county. And I'll conclude by saying about 17 years ago, when I was first being sworn into the state legislature, my mom at that time reminded me, she said, just remember that if it's a good job, you need to share. You need to turn that over. And if it's a bad job, you need to share. You need to turn that over. So I'm not making anybody promises whether this is a good job or bad job, but it's time to turn it over.
Yeah,
So,
thanks.
with that, I place the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. We do have a new chair. Commissioner Harvey, I'm going to trade you seats.
Wow, that works great. How about we all three trade seats? Is that
All right.
okay?
We can do that. Probably Commissioner Bolos may not understand the reason behind that, but we'll explain it to her. Chair Harvey, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's make sure those name plaques are right. It's been a while since you've been chair. I'm kind of looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's not
Wow.
been long enough, but that's okay. Great. Thank you for former Chair Frohr for this privilege. Our item action, we're on item G like golf, number 2. Our next item number 2 is a request for a motion to divide the West Haven 10 precinct to comply with state code. The presenter, Ms. Lauren Schaefer. Ms. Schaefer, please come forward. Good morning.
Do you guys want a copy of that map again? I have a paper copy if you would like it.
No, I'm okay with that.
Yep.
So, we're required by statute to split any precincts that are above 1,250 voters. West Haven 10 currently sits at 1,522 active registered voters. So we want to split it down the middle. There's a natural boundary, basically. There's a canal straight down the middle of the precinct. So we would hope to do that. It would keep West Haven 10 and then create West Haven 14. And that's really it. We just want to make sure that we get it done this year while we're having an election.
Very good. Questions, commissioners?
None for me.
No. I'll make a motion to divide the West Haven 10 precinct to comply with state code as presented by Lauren Schaefer.
Have a motion?
Second.
Great. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Our item number 3 is the first reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 2-15 to the Weber County Code. Ms. Schaefer, go ahead.
So We want to make a couple of changes to the county campaign finance ordinance. There's currently 4 required reports that are required by state statute. This is the annual report, the primary report, the general report, and the final report. We're aiming to add 2. And then make clarifying changes to the penalty section. These are only applicable to county candidates, though. So currently, voters cannot see what a candidate is spending or receiving until 7 days before the primary or general election, in which case most voters have already voted and returned their ballot. We're proposing that we add a convention report, which would be a report filed 7 days before that candidate's convention. This would give constituents the ability to see how a candidate is spending and receiving funds before their convention. The second report we'd like to add is the pre-election report. This report takes place 7 days before ballots are mailed out for the primary election and/or general election. It'll give voters a chance to look at how candidates are spending or receiving funds again right before their ballot's delivered to their door. The clarifying changes that are being made in the penalty section would be that candidates can only be disqualified if they fail to file their primary or general report, which are the 2 that are required to be disqualified under state law, and that if they miss their 24-hour grace period. It also clarifies that candidates who fail to file reports cannot run for office again until their fine is paid with us or their statement is filed with our office.
Very good. So what this does is allow additional transparency.
Yes.
For people. Great. Questions, commissioners?
None for me.
Entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd move to approve the first reading of the ordinance amending chapters 2 through 15 of the Weber County Code as presented by Ms. Safer this afternoon.
Have a motion?
Second?
Place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 4. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. One of the great assets of Weber County is coming to the podium right now, Ms. Jennifer Graham, who's been with the county for how many years now, Jen?
32 and 2 months.
Wow.
32 years, 2 months.
This may be one of the last times I get to publicly humiliate or embarrass you.
I'm sure you'll come up with other opportunities. So, good morning,
Hold on, I'm
Commissioners.
not there yet. Just easy. I count Jennifer as a wonderful friend. She's announced her retirement, and that's why I give her a little bit of a hard time. She's been an incredible a leader, and she's been a friend to all, not just to everybody. She's very fair and cordial. She's extremely smart. She watches out for, the best thing she does is she watches out for her family first, but then she watches out for her employees and her husband. I know his pain.
Yes.
That's an inside joke.
Yeah.
So this is a request for those, as a matter of record, this is a request for approval of a cooperative agreement between Weber County and the Utah State University for the USU provision for extension service, prevention services, or USU extension services. Go ahead, Ms. Graham.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. This is we are currently in in 2023, we were in an agreement with USU. So this is just kind of a renewal of that agreement. It's a 3-year agreement where we commit to a certain amount of funding for that department, and that funding goes through the budget process every year. For 2024, it is just under $339,000 for our portion of what we receive from that USU extension service, this is just a small portion of what their resources provide the county.
Thank you. For those local residents who don't use USU extension, there's so many valuable things to learn and continue learning at any age out there. And I encourage you to use those services that are located out there on Fairgrounds Drive. Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Graham, Commissioners?
None. I'll make a motion to approve the cooperative agreement by and between Weber County and Utah State University for USU provision of extension services.
Motion heard.
And I'll second that with a comment, Mr.
Please,
Chair.
go ahead.
So I just echo what said. USU Extension's a valuable partner in this community and most people don't understand the services they provide from beekeeping. They've been a huge advocate of what we've done for our newly created, now 3 years ago now, our weed board, trying to control the noxious weeds we have in this county. And the investment we put into USU based upon the return is far greater return versus cost. So I'm happy to second that, Mr. Chair.
Great. With that, I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Graham. Our next one is Mr. Park, Scott Park. It's
Ricky Hatch.
Ricky Hatch is going to take care of that. Great. Our request for approval of a contract by and between Weber County and Squire and Company, PC for auditing services. Mr. Hatch?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have external auditors who come in every year and examine the books and issue a formal opinion in accordance with best practices in private industry as well as government. We like to change the auditors periodically to avoid them getting too close to the county to maintain their objectivity. Our contract with our existing auditors has expired, and so we put out to bid for a new audit, and we received bids from a couple of companies. We selected Squire and Associates as our new auditor. Squire is a preeminent audit firm, particularly in the government area for the state of Utah. They conduct the audits for Salt Lake County, Salt Lake School Board, as well as Weber and Davis school districts. So they're very well qualified and familiar with governmental accounting. So this contract that we're proposing will provide auditing services to the county, to the Housing Authority, and to the 911 district, and this contract is good for 5 years.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hatch. Questions, commissioners?
None for me.
Before I entertain a motion, just as a matter of information, Mr. Hatch is noted as one of the finest auditors in all of the United States. He frequently is in D.C. Representing auditors from all the nearly 4,000 counties nationwide, and has just done a phenomenal job. He's also the one that helps of all the counties in all the 29 counties of Utah. Weber County is one of the most financially, in such a good financial position that we're in the top 2% of all counties in the United States. And so thank you, Ricky, but also all the other employees, many who are sitting in this room who helped make that possible. Thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve a contract by and between Weber County and Squire and Company, PC for auditing services.
Second.
Second. Okay, great. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. The next one is a resolution, commissioners. This is a request for Resolution 01-2024, approving interlocal agreement with Morgan County and Plain City for the distribution of ARPA funds for the construction of a new Children's Justice Center. This is exciting. Mr. Crockett, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is exciting. Both items number 6 and 7 are the final agreements with the cities and the county, including Morgan County, for contributions to the new Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center that is going to be built on land that has been provided by the Ogden School District. The agreement's amounts, Plain City and Morgan are approximately $40,000 apiece, and Ogden City is contributing approximately $640,000 towards that new building. The commissioners are very well aware of this project, but for those in the audience, I thought it would be nice to just very quickly state what the Children's Justice Center does. It's an organization created by state statute and really county-driven and county-run, though, where victims of child abuse, particularly sexual abuse, are taken to a safe place to be interviewed, where that information is used in the prosecution of crimes. But there's also a tremendous amount of resources that go to these children. This is a community-wide issue, and it has been so wonderful to see all of the cities and the counties come together and all the school districts, the amount of support for this program. It is such an important one. And so for these two items, I present to you for your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Crockett. Commissioners, questions or comments?
None for me. I'm happy to make a motion when you're ready.
Sharon, any?
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair, or former chair.
Thank you. I'll move to approve Resolution 01-2024, approving the interlocal agreement with Morgan County and Plain City for the distribution of ARPA funds for the construction of the new Children's Justice Center, as presented by Mr. Chris Crockett.
I'll second that with a comment, if I may.
Please.
I just want to thank the cities who have willingly given funding to this. I think sometimes we see issues that happen similar to this with children and sexual abuse. We see it as something that happens in other cities, particularly in those smaller cities. They see it as an inner city issue, and it's been really nice to see those smaller cities come to the table and recognize their need for input in support of this Children's Justice Center. So I just want to thank them for that.
Thank you very much. I'll place that resolution for vote. Craig, go ahead.
Roll call vote for Resolution 01-2024. Commissioner Faur.
Aye.
Commissioner Bolos.
Aye.
Chair Harvey.
Aye. Thank you. Item number 7, Commissioners, is a request for approval of a grant agreement by and between Weber County and affiliate Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center in Ogden City for funding related to the construction of the Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center. I think you covered a lot of this, Chris, but is there any more discussion from you on this?
The only difference is that Ogden City this is their subrecipient grant agreement, so it's different in verbiage than the other agreements with the cities, but essentially accomplishes the same thing. It's a donation of funds towards the center.
Thank you. Commissioners' comments regarding item number 7 on our agenda?
A question, if I might,
Please.
Mr. Chair. So, Chris, remind me, I believe that with the Plain City, with the last resolution we just passed, every city in the county have now designated or granted ARPA funds.
Every single city, and then also Morgan County.
Morgan County, yeah.
And the county has also contributed a significant amount of funds as well.
Yeah, I would just say that when we had that discussion with the cities at our WACOG meeting, it became very apparent that this just was not a Ogden City issue. This was a county-wide from East Ogden Valley all the way through to West Warren. And so I was glad to see the mayors in those small cities come forward with their grant money. So, good program.
It's a great program. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
no one in the public likes to hear about stuff like this, especially crimes against children. And when you decide to represent people, you also get to hear these kind of things as well. I'm glad that we're able to help them, at least provide them a safer place to come to after such an event. Commissioner Bolos, our commissioners, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve a grant agreement by and between Weber County and affiliate Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center and Ogden City for funding related to the construction of the Weber Morgan Children's Justice Center.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. I'll place that motion for vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion carries. We'll now move to item number G8 on our agenda, which is a request for approval of resolution 02-2024 of the County Commissioners of Weber County requesting that Utah Inland Port Authority adopt certain land into its project area and adopt a project area plan for such an island. Our presenter this morning is our Economic Development Director, Ms. Stephanie Russell.
Good
Ms.
morning,
Russell.
Commissioners.
Go ahead, please.
Before I present the resolution, I would like to get your permission to entertain some dialogue regarding some of the questions that were offered during the public comments a little bit earlier today.
We'll head to that in your presentation, so go ahead with your
Okay.
presentation, and I've made notes on every person who made a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the public comments because these types of developments are very large, and they are not done flippantly. They are done with great research and with great investment on behalf of the county as well as other organizations. So I'm hoping to provide some information to the speakers today and to address some of their concerns. And I'm going to start by giving just kind of a basic timeline and context of this actual project as why we're here today on this date to pass this resolution. I was hired by the county a little bit over 2 years ago to come in and assist with the development of the West Weber corridor. That corridor had been under study and had been under development for several years prior to my being hired with the county. We have lots of partners out in that corridor, and I hope today, as I speak on the corridor, that we have a better understanding of how everything that we do all of our partners, all of our engagement, and how this inland port resolution will play into what is culminated into our general plan in that area. The county, as stated earlier by one of our public commenters, has put an incredible amount of time and effort and community input into our general plan. Our general plan was adopted in July 2022, and we have moved forward using that general plan as a roadmap and as a guide for our development efforts out in that area, because the general plan takes into consideration all of the concerns, whether it be water, wetlands, heritage preservation, trails and amenities, housing development, industrial development. Our general plan addresses every single one of those items. So once the general plan was adopted, we started moving forward with implementation of that general plan. Some of the things that have happened since that time frame that have contributed to implementation of that general plan have been our partnership with Northern Utah Economic Alliance, our partnership with the Utah Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, our partnership with WACOG, our partnership with WFRC. We have a lot of local and state partners that are involved in what goes on in that area and the development efforts that go on in that area, whether it be private investment, public-private investment. Bringing in the inland port at this point in the process is providing a resource for us. They don't govern what happens out in that area. They don't have carte blanche relative to the development that's being recruited and the infrastructure that's being put out there. They're a resource to partner with us because they have statutory, they have some statutory powers that counties and private developers do not have, that are of benefit to what we need to have happen in that area for it to incur smart growth. I want to invite Charlie Ewert up just for a couple minutes, Charlie, just to talk really briefly about that general plan and some of the things that are desperately needed in that area. Everything that we're doing in that area is in compliance with our general plan. And to talk a little bit about zoning and about how it works with our partner organizations.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Mr. Ewert, go ahead.
Stephanie gave me a heads up a few minutes before the meeting that I might be called up for you guys. Listening to some of the comments being made, I think we all have very similar goals. One of the primary goals being the protection of the Great Salt Lake, as well as the waterfowl and water resources that we have out west. The general plan was created with those things in mind. In fact, we rested the general plan on 7 primary smart growth principles. And that planning process was a 2.5-year process with public hearings, public comment periods, all that went into play. It's unfortunate that for whatever reason it didn't get to all those who are in the room today, that those meetings were happening, but they did occur over the past few years. And one of the things that the general plan did not change, the new general plan did not change, is the industrial area. I think a lot of the misinformation and misunderstanding that has been present here in the meeting is the term inland port. Whether or not a port is approved today is irrelevant to what the general plan calls for in that area, which has been the same since at least 2003. In fact, it may be even prior to 2003. That area has been zoned for manufacturing and industry, heavy manufacturing and industry, for at least 2 decades, if not longer than that. General plan calls for heavy industry. But what we did through that general planning process is we put a little bit of shape around that heavy industry so that it's not all rocket part manufacturing processes. And that is one of the fundamental processes that's in that M3 zone that is zoned out there. So your general plan says you should have industry out there. Your zoning shows at least 8,000 acres of heavy industry out there. But then your general plan also says balance these other interests, including need for open space, need for parks and recreation, need for environmental protection, saving the Great Salt Lake, making sure that the water quality is protected. There is an assumption that if you approve an inland port, you are approving the paving paradise and putting up a parking lot. And that is not the case at all. Your general plan would very much discourage that. And that's not what approval of an inland port would do either. One commenter brought up a really great observation. Over on 5900 West, there is a new manufacturing zone, manufacturing and technology zone, that was just adopted by the county this last year. And we've been working hand in hand with that developer because there are some critical wetland area there and some critical waterfowl areas there. And we connected, before we even did that rezone, we connected that developer to the West Warren Parks District. And that district is really interested in seeing that open space being preserved, as well as protecting that riparian area and protecting that waterfowl area. And the developer agreed. And this was a great resource where it was previously private property. It was previously determined to be privately held by the landowners as well as a ditch company to be essentially a water storage area. Now, through the partnership that the county had with that neighboring developer, that whole area will be preserved permanently as a lake area, as a pond area, both for parks and recreation as well as for environmental protection. So there are ways that we can marry the two together. I think one of the questions is, can environmental protection and industry happen next door? And it can. There are a ton of laws in place that the developers will have to comply with, including wetland mitigation. If there are found to be wetlands in a particular area, the developer will have to mitigate that. The wetlands mapper takes a very broad brush and says, we think that these might be wetlands. We've been finding a lot more often than not, when you go out there with an expert to actually delineate those wetlands with the Army Corps, there's a lot less than people think, than the maps show, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. And it's very important that we protect them and take care of them. In order to move a wetland, you've got to remediate that. The Army Corps dictates how you remediate that, and where it's located and how that remediation occurs is up to the Army Corps. But last I heard, wetland movement, you had to create 5 times the amount of new wetland that you were destroying in a particular area. And that was a swap between wetland here in Weber County and new wetlands up by the bird refuge in Box Elder County. And so that's one way that remediation can happen, to make sure that we are protecting the waterfowl and protecting the environment, while also allowing some of these private property owners to use their private property rights. So any questions? The plan really kind of vetted this out, fleshed it out. It's online for anyone to read and review. But if you have any questions for me on how it might be implemented, let me know.
One question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, and I don't want you to go far, Charlie. Just sit right there on the front row when you're done. Go ahead, Commissioner Floor.
So, Charlie, I know probably maybe 2 years ago, I lose track of time, when we first started working with Chris Roybal and his group on that mega site, we actually downzoned some of that property that was, when you call heavy industrial, we didn't feel that heavy industrial that would allow, like you say, rocket motors, and we actually downzoned that. So we've cut some use away because of what we've done with that downzone, did we not?
That's right. In the plan itself, it has kind of a what's the word? Steps or evolution of uses as you head west. There was a lot of heavy industry, and the plan calls for a lot lighter industry before you get to that more heavier industry side of things. And even then, the plan implements some environmental controls to make sure that even in the heavy industry areas, you've got the wastewater and the runoff and the stormwater runoff, taken care of, so that pollutants are not reaching the lake. And that's just, regardless of whether or not the plan said that, it's also a state law. You cannot allow those pollutants to reach the lake.
Yeah, since you brought it up, Mr. Chair, if I might just clarify.
Please continue.
So this is really just the start. This is not the end. And again, it's already zoned. Number one, it's been zoned like that. I remember 50 years ago, a company called GSL, 50 some plus years ago, set up business here. Since then, W's Westinghouse has come in. What I'd call somewhat heavy industrial. And because of that, the areas around it were designated back some time ago as industrial. And so those private property owners have basically recognized that zone and have the ability now to develop on their own under the zones that we have set in place.
That's absolutely right. So designating this as an inland port really is irrelevant to the question of industrial growth.
Right.
It's that zone that was adopted, I don't know how long ago, decades ago. And so any landowner, this may not be fully understood by a lot of folks, and granted, it's been a short period of time since this was put on the agenda, so not a lot of research has been able to occur yet, but any landowner in that area can come into the county and say, I want to do this manufacturing use, and as long as it's listed in that zone as being allowed, you can't say no. It's allowed. And so that decision on whether or not industrial uses out west can occur has already been made. Now it's just a question of financing is what the Port Authority is all about.
Thank you. That's my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Bolos, questions?
Yeah, Charlie, you briefly talked about this, but the general plan can be executed as is without the port.
Correct.
So just briefly explain what the difference is.
Between the port and the general plan?
There's not a difference. The difference of it developing without the port or with the port.
Let's definitely.
The difference is the port is a financial tool, and they would be part of our resource toolkit. So we have several resource tools in our toolkit for development out in that area. We use the general plan as the roadmap. It is the general plan is the end all be all, and then we partner with different organizations. We partner with UDOT. We partner with Wasatch Front Regional Council. We partner with WACOG. We partner with Northern Utah Economic Alliance. We partner with EDC Utah. Inland Port has some resources that we desperately need to put in very, very needed infrastructure. And I want to stress something important about the infrastructure that we're looking at putting in. We partner with Little Mountain Service Area. They're in the process of augmenting their sewer lagoon system, which is the only entity out there that has a discharge permit to the Salt Lake. They are in desperate need of expanding their operation as the growth comes in, and just right now as it relates to what's existing. Little Mountain would be partnering with Inland Port to put in a mechanical treatment facility that would be able to have significant impact in a positive way with the Salt Lake. They would discharge directly into the Salt Lake. They would process wastewater for that whole entire area, which is currently not an option right now, and discharge into the Salt Lake. And that would also include looking at doing some improvements to our stormwater system, to the irrigation systems out there. The Inland Port is a mechanism and a tool by which we can assist with further smart growth in that area. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. One more?
Yeah, please.
It was brought up that this is being adopted or would be adopted at the expense of the taxpayers. Can you address that, please?
No, I'm actually going to invite one of Ben's team to come up and speak to that, to explain how the port works financially and how it is absolutely not a detriment to the taxpayers.
Could you please identify yourself for those
Yes.
in the record? Thank you.
Of course, Mr. Chair. Thank you. My name is Ben Hart. I'm the Executive Director of the Utah Inland Port Authority. It's an honor to be with you here today. And the question was, financially, how is this different? How are we ensuring that we're not just being a drain to the Weber County tax system and to those who are paying into that system? And ultimately, the mechanism that we've been given by the state legislature is for the use of the development that is going to occur in that area. So as development happens and those users in the area pay into the tax system, then we work with Weber County to redirect those taxes in ways that help to pay for public infrastructure. I do also want to just say, I know there's been a lot of misinformation. We're going to try and get some of that right, I'm sure, throughout this process. But one of the things that's been floated is that we subsidize developers. We absolutely do not. We help take care of regional infrastructure uses. Not only does none of our money go to developers, but it doesn't go to offset their costs either. They have to pay for internal infrastructure the way that they would have to with any other development. We help pay for, as Stephanie alluded to, regional and other types of infrastructure that help to support an entire area in balance with the natural environment. Somebody had said, well, maybe this is a step towards, making a worse situation with the lake. That's not accurate. In fact, that's completely wrong. By having this inland port financial mechanism in place, you're actually going to have a pretty significant financial source that goes back to protect wetlands and the Great Salt Lake. So not only is this not going to hurt the Great Salt Lake or the adjoining wetlands, this is actually going to be a benefit to the area. Does that answer your question?
And when you say a benefit, what you're saying is things when you put in infrastructure like this, you're requiring things like sewer. Right now out west, if I understand correctly, where sewer doesn't exist, they go into septic systems and leach fields. And so that leaches into the ground and it'll find its way to the Great Salt Lake, where this would go into a processing plant that actually would emit water cleaner than what comes down the river. I see you nodding, Stephanie, into the Great Salt Lake. So
you're exactly correct. And the other thing that I would say is part of that money that also does not go to developers, let me just emphasize that, does go directly back to, we'll be working with the Department of Natural Resources and with the Great Salt Lake Commissioner, so there will be some money that actually comes back and goes to wetlands and to the lake as well.
Treating the environment friendly is incredibly important to me, especially the bird refuges out there. Any more questions, Commissioner Bullis?
Go ahead.
I'm good for it. Go ahead.
I have
Please, with your
one last
presentation.
thing, and that is the timeline. We have been working with the Inland Port, and we've had several public meetings. We've been working with the Inland Port since April. Back in August, we passed our first resolution to adopt in a project area. And then we went back and they met with their board. Their board said, we'd like to look at expanding this so that it could actually benefit the region from a regional infrastructure perspective. That's why we're here today. This is after several public meetings. Today is to do basically a amendment to that original resolution and add in more properties into that area so that we can take advantage of the infrastructure resources that are currently available. And that's what the resolution is about today. And this, just like Commissioner Farrar said, this is a first step in a very long process.
Does this conclude your presentation, Ms. Russell?
It does.
Thank you.
Unless you have further questions.
Commissioner Farrar, Commissioner Bullis, questions for Ms. Russell or Mr. Ebert?
Yeah, one question, if I might.
Please.
So I just want to clarify that the agreement, the resolution, as we've had discussion, includes provisions for Weber County to basically stand up a committee or commission that has input on what exactly would happen out there, what type of construction, what type of industry would come in. It's probably no secret. I was at the legislature. Ben will probably remember this when the Inland Port was created. And I haven't always been a fan of the Inland Port, as Ben can probably shake his head to. And the main concern I've always had with the Inland Port is that I didn't want state government, bless their hearts, to come in and take control over what should be local control for the neighbors out there, for what this body and the public should see out there as future industry. I think with this resolution, at least what I've read, I think we have the ability now to go before the board and say, this is either a good idea for Weber County or it's not a good idea. And because of that resolution, I feel strongly that that will take place. And again, let's clarify, this money, and I think Ben stated it very clearly, is not money that goes to developers. It goes for infrastructure. It would be for roads, for rail. Hopefully,
Water, sewer.
Hopefully, some point in time, as we work with our friends over at UDOT, takes care of that traffic problem as we look for Legacy North to be extended and take traffic off of 900 South 12th Street.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you brought that up. That is all part of what we've been doing here through economic development with our partnership with Northern Utah Economic Alliance. We have been working with all of the state organizations to address issues like transportation, congestion, emissions. As you know, one of our main focuses and one of the primary points that we were when we went into negotiations with the Inland Port was to talk about renewable energies. We have partnerships set up with University of Utah as well as Weber State to do research and development. This is not about bringing a bunch of pollution to this area. This is about smart development that is in complete alignment with our general plan, but even goes above and beyond as it deals with wetland mitigation, as it deals with stormwater, and retooling that whole area so that it's very environmental friendly. The new wastewater treatment facility, we're even looking at harvesting methane out of that system. So we're taking a very, very proactive economic and environmentally friendly approach to this development of this area. I do want to reference Section 3 of the resolution today, and it says to work directly with a specialized economic development committee appointed by Weber County Commission, and 2, before making any financial decisions for the benefit of the project area, take into consideration the recommendations of such committee on a project-by-project basis. And that would mean that we would address the Inland Port Authority Board as these projects are being brought to the table.
Great. Does that answer your question,
It does,
Commissioner?
yeah. Just want to clarify that.
Commissioner, any other questions before I
No.
lob some of mine in there? With regards to the public hearing, first off, I want to mention and thank those who spoke at our public hearing. And the one that touched me too was the gal says, I've never done this before. It's sometimes can be scary to stand up at a public place and give your opinion, but if you're passionate about something, I really appreciate that. That matters a lot. I think as one of the things I've found as elected officials is we have a big job to educate. Some of the things that came up, one of the big points that came up with many people is there's not enough time. Back this off, it's the day after New Year's. Well, would it have been better if we did it the day after Christmas? Or we've already, in my time here, and I'm going to make a statement here, but the general plan's been there since 2003. A lot of meetings since 2003. We delayed the general plan for a full year so we could let the citizenry vote on whether or not they wanted to be a new city out there. Then we went forward with the general plan that took more than a year to go through. We've had some public comment, a lot of open houses out in that area, and the general plan, and I heard it called, Ms. Hipwell, you said you support the general plan. Another comment said it was genius. Ms. Russell, does this inland port support the general plan?
100%, and they don't have the authority not to support the general plan.
Thank you. Mr. Eager, I have some questions for you. Thank you, Ms. Russell. Harold Crane and Ogden Bay. These are, since I was a boy, huge assets to our area. In no way, I would hate to see any of those even partially damaged. Just refer me again, what impact do you see about this? Now, I guess this really speaks more towards the general plan than it does to anything else. But do you see the inland port, as it relates on the agenda today? Anyway, tell me how this can impact those two, especially those big, important bird preservation areas.
From a purely impact statement consideration, the inland port does nothing to further impact those two areas above and beyond what current zoning would otherwise already do. Of course, when you've got development happening, there is impact that occurs. But impact is not going to directly occur to either of those two areas. And as we do develop in those areas, we will need to, number one, mitigate loss of wetland area. So we know when developers come in to develop their sites, if they are losing wetland area, they are going to need to come up with another area to move that or to bank it in order to even move those or change the wetlands on their property. And so they'll need to work with the Army Corps to create a place where that wetland area can be banked. There are a lot of areas next to Harold Crane as well as next to the Ogden Bay that could be benefited by moving wetlands closer to those areas so that waterfowl have a more contiguous area in which they can nest as opposed to a little more spread out. So that's one of the, I think, primary concerns is taking care of the waterfowl and taking care of the lake. Developing between those two areas it's going to occur in time because the zone already exists. So the port is not going to change that. Another thing that is important to consider is height limitations. Our zones do have height limitations. And so when we're talking about waterfowl, we definitely need to make sure we're not impeding on their ability to migrate around, as well as land on water bodies. And that's really important because they can't take off and land on land. And so making sure that we've got contiguous water areas is going to be important, and mitigating wetland and moving them from one place to a larger place is going to be helpful for that. That answer your question?
It does. It does a lot. That's important. The Indian graveyard, again, is super important. I don't know where that is. You know, I was taught when I was a young boy that when an old man dies, the world loses a library. We have a couple of great libraries here, especially in the Davis family. I don't want to infer that you're old. You're just finally reaching maturity as far as I'm concerned. But I appreciate the insights where, as far as I'm concerned, those folks out there know that property more than anybody. So this is incredibly important to me.
Part of our general plan is we're required by the state law to have a county resource management plan. Part of that county resource management plan is paleontological resources. Now, the state defends very tightly where those resources are located. They don't want grave diggers or marauders or any of those folks going and looking for any of those cultural resources and taking them. And so we don't always know exactly where they're located, and if the Davises do, that's great. But in order for any of those landowners who have any of those resources on their property, the state does know where they are, they still have to go through the state process and make sure that they are protecting paleontological resources.
This is really what we're doing today has nothing really to do with that development of those Indian things there.
No, and as soon as a developer chooses to develop that property, the state will be involved in making sure that that area is delineated and not bothered.
Great. Did you have something else, just quickly, Ms. Russell?
No. I would just call for you to adopt a resolution.
Thank you. Well, you know, well, the last thing I wanted to mention is if we're being, commissioners, if we're being environmentally sensitive in this thing, it would make sense to me that we one day eliminate those 2 sewer lagoons and turn them into ponds or reuse ponds for additional water resource that's captured
That's actually in the long-term plan.
Great. That makes sense to me.
That'd be mechanical.
Unless there's any more questions, Commissioner Bolos?
I don't think so.
Commissioner Farrar?
No, well, just one other question or clarification. It was, you know, air quality's been brought up in a number of emails that I received. I think we know very well that, again, going back to the State Department of Air Quality, DAQ, weighs in on that. We actually had an opportunity over the last 2 or 3 years as we talked with potential companies that were going to locate there, that they didn't qualify because of air quality. So before anything happens out there, air quality will be dealt with DAQ. The environmental, again, we've talked about the wetlands issue will be managed by the Corps or state. So it's a long road ahead and a lot of red tape for anybody that does want to develop out there. But believe me, air quality, the environment, the water issues, the reuse of the Salt Lake all come into play. And again, commissioners, I don't see that approving this today impacts that. I think it actually brings on a partner with the state that gives us the ability through finance mechanisms to pick and choose the companies that we want in versus what a potential landowner would want that we would have to approve because of zoning.
Great. Commissioners, are either one of you prepared to make any kind of a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 02-2024.
And I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion and a second. The chair will place this motion for vote. Mr. Brandt?
Roll call vote for resolution 02-2024. Commissioner Farrar?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolos?
Aye.
Chair Harvey?
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if we would, Mr. Myers would like you to come forward, please. Mr. Myers, why are you standing in front of us today other than I've asked you to come forward?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you guys. As I've said many times, I am I am lucky enough to be the department director for a department of unicorns. My department are all amazing overachievers and incredibly just model employees. Luckily enough, we get the chance to recognize one of them for his accomplishments. That individual is Ashley Toman. Ashley had absolutely zero idea of what's going on today. Hopefully that's evident by the look on his face, but wanted to take just a few minutes and tell you a little bit about Ashley. I've known Ashley, well, long time. I met him in school. He and I took classes together at Utah State University. I actually graduated the same year together. Our careers kind of separated and parted and went different directions. Fortunately enough, in 2020, we made contact with each other and were able to bring Ashley on board here at the county. So ever since he's been here, Ashley's been a huge help to me. The first thing he did when he started was he came in my office and we sat down and he created a top 5 of project lists. In my role here as the county, we get pulled in a lot of different directions. Ashley's kind of been very helpful to be that calming presence to help keep us on task and moving forward. In fact, I actually pinged each one of my employees and asked them what are some of the things that stand out about Ashley. That's one of the things one of them said. They said he's actually a very calming individual. He has an ability to bring everything back to reality. Another one mentioned that he's always there to help offer clarification on things when we need help. Another one mentioned that he's always willing to help. No matter how full Ashley's plate is, he's always willing to offer to help take something from somebody when they need help. Again, even back to the last year we just went through, when things were incredibly crazy, starting as early as January, when we had water just everywhere and we had no idea how to deal with it, what to do. Ashley was a huge help, huge voice of calm to me. So with that, a few words that I've been grateful to share about Ashley. So.
Well, Commissioners, Ashley receives the Stall of Fame today. Ashley, do you have any words you'd like to speak? Keep them under 20 minutes, please.
I appreciate the kind words. It's a little bit of a outer body experience. I, just really enjoy what we do here. I enjoy the people we work with. That includes, within the county and also the residents that we work with and work to serve and help. And so I guess this is Gary breaking a promise that he wouldn't do this. So we'll have to deal with him later. But
we have a little presentation we'd like to give to you, Ashley,
thank you.
if that's okay. Commissioners, let's go down in front of the dais.
Gary, let's get one with you up. I don't deserve it. He does.
With that, fellow commissioners, I'll entertain a motion for item number I India on our agenda.
Motion to second.
Motion and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.